Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to GarbAugust, the BookTube event to, one can only hope, end all BookTube events. This is an event created by Ollie at Criminali, and it's about garbage. It's a celebration of trash. All month in the month of August, we are reading trash. Books that just aren't good for you. And before we launched GarbAugust, just for fun, all the co-hosts have a Voxer group, and just for fun, we started batting around ideas of what are indicators of trash, including the more surfacey, the more shallow, the better. What's a list of shallow indicators that shouldn't mean anything about a book that might indicate that it's garbage before you even turn a page? And we came up with a whole long list of things. Is it the 20th thing in a series? Does it have ads stuck in the middle of the paperback? That sort of thing. I came up with a whole bunch of others. I would love to do a whole video about that. I should see if maybe my co-hosts would have much of a problem with me taking that itemized list, adding to it, and making a whole video on that, since I don't think we're ever going to do a video together. But one of the items on that list that is just silly, because you could write a good book with this item. You could write a good book with almost any of these items, right? The fact that there are ads in the middle of a paperback says nothing about the quality of the book, really. That was just a list of intentionally shallow attributes that we were doing just to have fun. But one of the elements that came up on that list, in fact, it came up fairly quickly, was, is the book a shifter book? Does it deal with shape-shifting? Does someone or many people in the book shape-shift? If that's true, probably the book is trash. Now, I can think of a whole bunch of books that have shape-shifting that aren't trash, but I can think of a lot more that have shape-shifting that are, so maybe there's some truth to that. And shifting has come up in many of the GarbAugust videos that I have made and that other people have made. Shifting has come up as sort of a telltale sign that you might be dealing with garbage. And because shifting came up in videos, several of you heard me say that. Several of you heard me and my co-host talk about shifting. And one of you sent me a series of books about shifting. Maybe wondering if I was going to consider them garbage. I don't think there's any question about how I would consider them. Or maybe this person was just sending me these ebooks to punish me. Perhaps for some mean or invidious things that I had said about the ghost who walks. One way or another, this person knows me well enough to have read my character sufficiently to know that once I saw these, I would have to read some of them. In fact, I am going to read all of them, but I read the first two last night. This is going to be rough, book two. They're gay romances. That is not on its own an indicator of garbage. That I don't think was even a shallow indicator of garbage. But they are also set in the Omegaverse. One of the designations to make it nice and quick and to keep it, with just letters instead of typing out a word is MPREG. M-P-R-E-G. That means, when you see that on a self-published, always self-published romance on Amazon, for instance, MPREG means Omegaverse, because that is short for men getting pregnant, which is a hallmark characteristic of the Omegaverse. You have alphas, who are just the greatest and the bestest guys in the world, and then you've got normal humans, then you've got omegas, who are kind of built to be submissive to alphas and who can get pregnant by alphas, even though they're men. The babies come out the poop chute, in case you were curious to know. And there are whole, I have plumbed the depths of the Omegaverse. There are whole non-fiction tracks that people have written explaining the science and biology of the Omegaverse. That's very much the minority. Most of the novels are just about the Omegaverse. But I think, I'm not sure. I have not gone all the way into the darkest corners of the Freudian psychology behind the Omegaverse, but I think it probably arose out of a desire on the part of some writers to have the full spectrum of a romance story without having any women. Having it be completely gay from start to finish. And the one element that's missing now from the gay experience in the real world, despite what blue check marks on Twitter will just try to indoctrinate you into believing only women can become pregnant. Men cannot become pregnant. Men do not have wombs, so they cannot become pregnant. And That's missing. In other words, if you want to call it that, I don't really see it that way, but that's missing, not only from gay relationships today, in, for instance, America. For a year and a half more, this is allowable. This is still legal. For a year and a half more from the making of this video, it is still possible for two men to court each other in public, hold each other's hands in public, say I love you in public. I'll have access to the internet, but that's a whole different story. Get married, have that marriage upheld by the Supreme Court, and also adopt a child. But they can't produce the child on their own. They have to buy one. The arch-right, alt-right conservative sellout, Dave Rubin, who's a gay man married to another man, recently bought a couple of children and was turned on immediately by his alleged conservative allies. Right now, that element has to involve a woman. And I think the ultimate origin of the Omegaverse was to write gay fantasies in which no element of love, so not the meet cute, not the courting, not the marriage, not the tempestuous relationship, not the cheating, not the sex, and also not the child rearing, that no element involved women. If I'm right about that as an origin, that is, of course, a little unhealthy, maybe a lot unhealthy, but that is what mpreg means. If you see that in a romance, and it says m/m, that means it's gay, and if it says mpreg, that means it's in the Omegaverse, where one of the men can become pregnant with a baby and deliver it. And you might think, well, okay, but what does this have to do with shifting? Well, one of you found me a series, probably not the only one, where it has a lot to do with shifting. It's a multi-book series. This is the first one. There are puns in all of the titles. I should warn you ahead of time, and the covers are fairly disturbing. These are by Lorelei M. Hart and Aria Grace. And I don't know whether to thank them or run them out of town. I don't know which to do. But the first one is not Feeling the Love. That's not the title of the book. The title is Feline the Love. And it's about a shifter who is part of a lion pride. Because it's not just werewolves anymore. You can shift into anything. He's part of the lion pride, and he's looking forward to just growing up as an honored member of that pride, but it turns out he has a regressive gene. And I am sure that in those non-fiction manuals about how the Omegaverse works, regressive genes have had whole chapters or books of their own. He has a regressive gene, and when it comes time for him to shift to his cat form for the first time, out pops not a lion, but a house cat. And I guess everybody laughs or hisses. I guess I don't know what a lion pride would do, but they don't want him to be part of their pride anymore. Obviously, he becomes an exile, and he goes to live in the city because these are ordinary people. These are not fantasy stories. This takes place in an ordinary city with subway tokens and bank cards and Brexit and apartment rent and whatnot. He goes to live in the city. He has a shabby little apartment. No one pays any attention to him. He mostly lives alone, and that's fine by him because every once in a while he just feels like, letting his inhibitions go. And when that happens, he crawls out his back window, transforms into a cat, and goes roaming about the neighborhood hoping to catch rats. So when he goes to work in his human form, in his Oxford, with his pants and his shoes and whatnot, and he's making small talk to you at the water cooler about that new manager who's a jerk. If you're standing there and you think his breath smells of dead rat, you're right. You're not imagining things. He spent his night hunting mice. And the story just goes on from there. He is out gallivanting, tomcatting, quite literally, when he's encountered by someone he's going to end up loving, who thinks he's adorable, as a cat. And gets a shape-shifting surprise later on. And if you're thinking, well, surely you wouldn't be more than 60 pages into a novel like this before you would start to hit all sorts of really disturbing undercurrents. Bestiality undercurrents, in other words, which does not have a letter in the LGBTQ acronym list, as far as I know, and I don't think it ever will. You'll be right if you think that. If you think you're going to encounter stuff like that really quickly, you're right. Now, our authors make an attempt at a plot here. They make an attempt at a plot and a subplot. The subplot is, obviously, you're rooting for the main character to regain acceptance in his own people, among his own people, where he's been exiled for being teeny tiny, for being a little cat. But the main plot is he going to find love? And what does that mean? If you're a man and you find love with this alpha who's a cat, if you're an Omega, is he going to follow the cause of nature and impregnate you? And if he impregnates you, are you going to be, laying there on the couch, sort of fondling your swollen butt or your swollen belly or whatever part of an Omega swells, and you hear an odd noise because your significant other, the man of your dreams, the cat of your nightmares, is off in the other room coughing up a gigantic hairball? What on earth was my main reaction to Feline the Love pretty much all the way to the end of the book, was what on earth? So the person who sent this to me was well revenged for my comments about the Ghost Who Walks. But it wasn't done. It wasn't over. Not at all. No, because there are sequels to Feline the Love. Like, for instance, book number 2 in the series, which is as far as I got last night before I just had to leave the bean on the bed, take a cold shower. The second book in the series is Somebody to Love. Oh no, I'm sorry, it's not Somebody to Love. It's Some Bunny to Love. Because it's about a bunny shapeshifter. Who meets all kinds of other shapeshifters who are not bunny shapeshifters. And you can shapeshift into anything. In the world, these two authors have somehow managed to cook up between them. And, well, if a bunny gets adopted by another, maybe an Omega, and maybe that Omega is a shifter of his own, but not into a bunny, into something else, and maybe they're both having problems with their home clans, and maybe they didn't know that this star-crossed or fur-crossed future was in the cards. Some Bunny to Love was exactly the same as Feline the Love, in that it had a subplot, again, revolving around whether or not the two main characters are ever going to make things right with their home clans. And then a larger plot, which is the very tangled course of their own relationship, of their own love. I won't say that Feline the Love and Some Bunny to Love weren't readable. They were. No one involved with GarbAugust has said that garbage has to be unreadable. In fact, one of the things that makes people so fond of garbage is how readable it is. I don't know that Lorelei and Arya think they're writing garbage. I certainly got the feeling in these books, I mean from the titles alone, but also in the books themselves, I certainly got the feeling that they are the kind of writer I've mentioned who's in on the joke and knows that they're not writing Tolstoy. I don't know how much invested they are if this book series was a success, and I can only judge from the number of books in the series that it was. Maybe they lost sight of that along the way and now take themselves seriously, but I didn't get that in this book at all. And that feeling of everybody just having fun, plus readability, which these two have definitely managed to do. You are going to want to keep turning pages in these things. You wouldn't believe it, but you will. But the desire to keep turning pages is not a hallmark exclusively reserved to quality fiction, right? The so-called quality writing, fiction or otherwise. Like, for instance, in my opinion, the greatest novel of the 20th century is The Magic Mountain. And it is not a page-turner. You need to be committed to it. Whereas I mentioned Brak the Barbarian, I've mentioned Thongor and the Wizards of Lemuria. That's very page-turning stuff. You don't want to stop. So they also have that. So this definitely fits in GarbAugust. I don't know what they would think about being in an event devoted to garbage, but I know this is an injustice to all of you out there who want my reports from the field, but I think I'm going to stop in this series. I don't think I'm going to move on to the others, even though one of the other books in the series is called Otterly in Love. Instead of Utterly in Love, it's Otterly in Love. Take a guess what animal is on the cover of that book. And there's one about dogs. I don't think I want to go any further. I don't think I want to think about bunny shifters and men getting pregnant. I think I will just stop with these first two. So my GarbAugust pick for tomorrow will be something different. Very, very different. But I couldn't not share this with you. So that was my trash pile for today. Was Feline the Love and Some Bunny to Love. And this has a series. This series has a name. I mean, you can see there it says Preg Shifter Romance, but it also has a name that I'm blanking on right now. I'll put that in the title of the video. So that's GarbAugust for today. Oh my God. We still have a week of this to go. I am determined to see it through. So we will see what trash we talk about tomorrow. Thank you.